sing, but I'd scare everyone away. 7 seconds? What? Oh, that was longer than usual. Lila, how are you today?
I'm doing fabulous today. How are you?
Hey, you told me that we had a little secret that we had to share with everyone. You got me really curious. I'm wondering, should we share that secret with everyone right away, or should we go and hold off and build some suspense?
Up to you. What do you think?
Ooh, okay, maybe we'll throw in a quick question of the day and then we'll go and jump in.
Let's do that.
What is something that's going viral right now that, like, maybe it's, I don't know, Morgan the other day said we're hot dog sandwiches. Is something not about work? What could we ask our audience?
I think the channels, email, social, which one would you use? And how much success, or I guess we can say, like, which success have you had more of, on email or social?
There it is. Question of the day.
Put in
One
the chat.
word.
We want to hear.
Email, social.
I always think the wrong way. I'm like, where am I?
Hey, it's okay. I do that all the time too, or I'll reverse my screen and then it'll switch on me.
It's always confusing.
Or smash my mic and then that never goes well. Okay.
Yes.
So everybody's coming in. The phone. Ooh, we're getting some curveballs here. Okay. So while you guys are jumping in, I'm going to introduce our guest. When I think of email, and particularly the king of email, Lila, who comes to mind when I say the king of email? Who could that be?
Well, only one person I could think of who posts constantly about this, who lives and breathes it, and actually created a company all around it. It's Allred at Lavender.
Ooh, Will. You know what? I think I saw him in the green room. Let's go check.
Good. Yeah, let's bring him in.
Boom.
Hey, what's going on?
We got to get you a crown, and you got to have like a little email logo or like a lavender
logo. We've been joking about a few different concepts. One being a purple wizard robe. So
that'd be awesome.
That'd be fitting. I could see that.
Yeah, it comes from our users talking about being email wizards, which I think is just like the funniest little term. I'm like, what if we just had like an email wizard robe and like outfit?
Do you have a term for all your lavender users, like lavendies or something?
I wish. We need one. We
should come up with one.
Well, seedlings.
Squad.
Sprouting lavender plants.
Yes. Good to have you here, though. Good to see your face.
Yeah, good to see you too.
I feel like I want to stir the pot right off the bat, Lila.
Go for it. I'm here for it.
So the king of email. Which does better for you? Social or email?
Man, that's a good question. Because obviously I've got a presence on LinkedIn, right? And so I can kind of generate some good response here. But I will say, like, when I've done some cold DMing, and like I'm not like, you know, pitch slapping anybody. I would say like my success has been over email. If I'm writing a good email.
And it's not hard with lavender.
Yeah, gotta do it.
But there was a time, not too long ago, that lavender didn't exist, Will. So I know a little bit about your guys' origin story, but I don't think most people do. So how in the heck did lavender come to be? How did this brainchild become real?
Also, I'm laughing at one of the comments. Lavengers.
That's a cute
so lavender came to be. It was a pivot. We were building a marketing technology product for about 2 years. Worked with some great brands, Yamaha, Gravity Blankets, doing customer segmentation based off of personality characteristics. Now, the challenge is, I give you a list of introverts. Your response as a 23-year-old paid media specialist working at an e-commerce brand is, cool, what the heck do I do with that? So we started building content tools to help you deliver on those segments. Well, we had some success, some traction, but we sort of hit this like moment in March of 2020 where our customer base basically hit the pause button, and we had a couple months of runway, and so we had to decide what to do next. So we got together in New York and we huddled and tried to figure out what we were going to do, right? Like, what's the game plan? As we were huddling, Will B, my co-founder, found an article in TechCrunch about LinkedIn Sales Navigator shutting down support for Gmail. And we were like, well, we have data connections. I bet we could like put something together, maybe generate some cash flow to keep us alive. Maybe we strap our content analytics tools on the back end to generate some leads for the marketing product. Well, turns out that combination was pretty popular from our first users that we threw it across at. So we just really started to focus in on that. Spent a summer trying to define. We had sort of the classic entrepreneur's problem of, I've got a cool solution, but I don't know who it's for. And then salespeople started talking about it online, and yeah, been going ever since.
Can you clear up a rumor for us? It's been going around, and William, he says that your friendship was bonded when you won the competition.
It's about rock, paper, scissors.
I don't know if it was in an incubator. He had a post that was really good about where you guys, like, your origin, like how you two met.
Yeah, so we met at a hackathon in Atlanta. So I had been working in consulting, was writing god awful emails at the time. I wrote god awful emails for quite some time, by the way. So not everybody just like is born with some email muscle. I had this idea that I wanted to pitch at the event around sort of like Gong for recruiting calls. But William got up there and he pitched this idea for a marketing tech product that like I'd experienced all those problems myself. And I was just like intimately drawn to it. I was like, yeah, I want to work on that for the weekend. And so I came up, said, hey, I'm ditching my idea. I want to come work with you on this. What do we need to do? And he was like, cool, we need to go find some engineers. So we spent the entire weekend basically cooped up in a small conference room, slept a maybe collective 3 hours. And next thing you know, I'm like, oh crap, I think we're going to start a business together.
So after one weekend, that's what happened.
Yeah. I mean, I had sort of already been bitten by the entrepreneurial bug. And so like I really wanted to make that leap. And so when I found a person that I wanted to do it with, it really made it all the easier to do.
Makes sense.
How do you feel? I'm curious to take an idea, because I have tons of ideas and I'm always like across the whole funnel of I mean, marketing technology is blowing up, MarTech space, and just like a salesperson's process. There's so many little things that we could perfect and optimize on, and I think our space is kind of getting a little saturated, and maybe we can talk about that too. But yeah, I'm curious, like, how you take an idea and maybe hire some engineers, then take it and make it a product and a solution and a company. Like, I'm just curious how you made that jump.
One thing that like it was super helpful in my sort of entrepreneurial journey was meeting Will. So Will had been on the entrepreneurial journey, had that startup-esque experience before. And so like I still remember, like, it was our first couple weeks after we won that startup competition. And he's like driving this urgency. And I'm like, bro, why are you like so like adamant about getting these things moving? He's like, it's just startups, like momentum is everything. Like, we gotta go. And I was like, wait.
Oh,
what?
okay.
I'm used to like dealing with these like enterprise clients. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, don't you know about the 2-week like schedule? Like, every meeting happens every other 2 weeks. And he's looking at like I have like 3 heads. So like, yeah, and that's just like one example of a bajillion. But having somebody who'd been there and like been on that journey before, it was super critical. Couldn't have done it without him in that sense. Yeah, I think the other thing is he was able to make that leap because he had had some early stage company experience as well. And so he had seen exposure to some of those things before. So I think a lot of that is like super helpful. So it's like, if you've got this itch to go build a startup, go start joining earlier and earlier stage companies to start getting a feel for what that's actually like.
Do you feel like you could do it on your own, or did you need somebody with you? Like, do you feel like you could have done this on your own, I guess?
I think the more appropriate question is, would I want to do it on my own? Which my answer is no.
Yeah.
That's how I feel with Morgan.
Yeah, I guess like why not, if you could have help, and especially if you complement each other. I'm sure you guys do, as a lot of co-founders do.
Yeah, very much so.
Go together. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've gotten to know Will a good bit over the past few years that we've gotten to know each other. Couldn't have asked for a better partner in crime on this.
That's really cool. I'm curious.
We brought in our CTO a year after we met. Yeah, he's our co-founder as well. But yeah, Casey's incredible, absolute workhorse, but just also, a fun person to get to know. And yeah, I think that's one of the cool things about this is you create a very special, particular bond with these people, and you sort of figure out whose strengths are what, and you start to complement one another. It's almost like natural.
Yeah, and the fact that your names are Will too, it just kind of blows my mind. Like your kids are never gonna believe it. You're like, yeah, I started Will and Will. Like that could have been the name of the company, like Will and Will. You know?
Yeah, it's like the Steves at Apple, right? No, the truth is like that having the same name. I used to joke when we'd have calls together, like, you could just say Will and we know who needs to respond because we work so well together. That's like, oh, that's his question.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Just know each other that well. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So you guys are formed. The company is formed. I guess
Sure.
At what point did you know that the idea was going to take off? Like, and also, how did you come up with the audience? Because sales, marketing, they all write emails. So kind of who did you target into to go and start off?
Yeah, and I mean, our origin story is a little bit different in that we spent some time working on a different product. So I'll focus in on Lavender because, I don't think we ever had that moment of, oh, this is working. For Lavender, I think really where it took off was Nick Bennett. Do y'all know Nick Bennett over at he's at Alice now? He posted to LinkedIn in July of 2020 about just trying out our product off of a recommendation from a friend. And that was the moment where we started to see the light bulb of like, one, salespeople like it. Two, they like to talk about it. Three, like literally just saw downloads go up. We were like, okay, let's dig into community. Let's dig into this like space. As we started to do that, one of the things that we found along the way is like communities were very adamant about like, okay, if we're going to build a community around salespeople, no one's pitching. And so we had to build a different kind of strategy for how we talk from the get-go. And so like we're sort of a product of our environment in the sense that like we saw it was people. We saw they lived in these communities, so we spent time there. We saw that we couldn't talk about what we were doing. So it's like, what do? You just help them with the problem. As a byproduct of helping with the problem, like you inevitably start to come to realize that our product can actually help you do that on top of what we're already saying, right? I can only coach so much. That's why we built our product. It enables the scale of the coaching that I do because it supports it and backs it up on repeat. That's one of the biggest challenges of coaching is like getting that reinforcement. And so, we did a nauseating amount of research into our market, into the competitive landscape, like where that like wedge exists. Like I'm a huge fan of Peter Thiel's 0 to 1. And so when we looked at the space, right, we're looking at like, we did like NLP analysis of, customer reviews and online conversations regarding commentary on everything from Grammarly to SalesLoft and Outreach, and pretty much every product in between. Mind you, those weren't the only ones. And one of the things that we saw is, there's this kind of gap when it comes to conversation regarding commentary on everything.
I think we're good.
Cool. So like we knew our wedge, we knew our niche, and so we just lasered in and focused on helping people in that space. When did we know we like had something? Honestly, it's the feedback that comes from like our amazing users. That's been probably one of the key things in keeping us going. I think people, assume from the social chatter that things are always going fantastically, etc. Like, Nicholas, probably from like running a business, like cash flow is king, and so like you have to like make things work. You got to figure it out, and so like one of the key things that's always kept us going has been our individual users. Like that lavender love online is real, and so like when we think about how we grow, how we do things, like that's something that we're always going to give back to, because it's been so crucial as part of our path.
For sure.
I'm curious how you got started, like the building that momentum, because you guys, as a founding team selling, it's a bigger task than just being an SDR selling, because that you also have to implement it and do like the back end, because you can't like hand it off. But how did you make sure you made sure like all your time counted? How did you guys, well, you did a lot of research, but like what did that process look like building that momentum?
Yeah, so let's see. Building that momentum. So a lot of our early users, we did like very hand-holding style onboarding to see exactly how they use the product, recognizing that we were a small team. It's like, how do we make sure that they can use the product when we're not around? And so we're asking questions. We're like, hey, why'd you click that? Why'd you do that this way? It's, the classic, you do the crap that doesn't scale, because you want it to be able to scale when you're not there. So you have to ask these like questions that have enabled us to honestly grow a lot faster and a lot more efficiently than we would have, say if we came out of the gate and raised $1 bajillion and hired a CS person who did all this hand holding and such. It's like, no, if we don't figure out the automated way of doing the hand holding, like we're just going to go out of business. So let's figure it out. And so the first step to that is just like sit down one-on-one. It's like, okay, Lila, we're going to sit down and like, I want to just like see how you install the product and like see how you get around with it. Obviously I'm happy to fill in any blanks, but like really appreciate you giving me some time to, download the product. And people be like, no, I mean, like if this helped me write better emails, that's great. So it's like validation that the problem exists. And it's just like, okay, cool. Now we're digging into the UX of like, wait, I'm trying to click this. Why doesn't it do anything? Or like, that's cool. I see I have an A, but how do I fix it? And so like, we're like seeing that and we're like, okay, what can we build that fixes that problem? Okay, how do we prioritize roadmap based off of that? How do we get this product to a point where it is self-sufficient on its own and like really doesn't require hand holding? Which I think a lot of teams in our position probably would have opted for, okay, let's switch and like add more consultative service on top and charge for that, because it's easy to do, right? I could charge you 10K and build out a bunch of cadences for you, and we can get going. But like that doesn't like have the same scale. It doesn't have the same multipliers as a founder that like actually matter. And so you have to do the hard stuff first to figure that out, and you have to sort of like delay that gratification. Those are some of the things that we had to do early on.
Makes sense. Almost like prospecting, right? When you manually prospect a few times and you're like, how can I go and build this list automatically? How can I like start removing some of the busy work? And so after you guys got that initial traction and you're like, okay, this is good, or good enough seems to be the term that everybody loves to use. Did you switch to outbound and start going for bigger companies, or what did the actual sales motion look like?
Yeah, so I saw Dorothy in the chat. So historically, our growth has been inbound. It starts with the content that we post on LinkedIn. It's entirely like rep picks up the product, they start using it, they tell their team members about it, or maybe they don't, but their performance improves to such a degree that their manager is trying to figure it out, and then they reach out to us. So inevitably, like the product either generates conversation, which generates growth, or results that generate growth. And so, like Dorothy from our team, when she was back at Mural, she was generating ridiculous results, and super glad to have you on board, Dorothy, because like her manager calls and goes, Dorothy's getting 5 times the amount of response as everybody else on the team. Like, what is Lavender, right? Like that kind of stuff is super cool. So now like we're really excited because we're hitting that next stage where we're starting to do more of the outbound type stuff. Now it's not that like I'm not sending emails or anything. Obviously I'm still going out and trying to close business. So you see a few people from an account sign up and you reach out and you say, hey, what's going on? Or you see somebody, it's an ideal prospect and you want to start a conversation. You kind of have to have that bias to go start that conversation. I'm super excited about the notion of us starting to do more traditional outbound in addition to some product-led style outbound as well.
That'll be fun to see. After, shoot me a message because I have a lead for you.
Right.
From that exact scenario, I got somebody to go and use it, and they're here in the chat, and everybody's asking them what the heck they're doing.
Yeah.
Except for this person's going like, I don't want to go and show my secrets. Like, Lavender's my secret weapon.
I love it. No, it's funny you say that. Our best salespeople, historically, no longer, have been our users. That's historically been the case. Now we've brought a couple on board to continue being our best salespeople.
And how are you going to go and keep that momentum? Like, what? Any ideas of what are you going to track? Are you going to be like, okay, well, what activities do we track if we typically do social and we get inbound? Are you going to take a different approach to that? Maybe you're going to pick Lila's brain of how she's doing her SDR enablement. I don't know.
Yeah, sure. Lila, how are you approaching it?
In regards to like using different channels, Nick? Yeah, I mean,
and tracking activity or success.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I've noticed is LinkedIn's kind of a black box when it comes to any sort of like data and tracking.
Yeah, it is, because you can't really track your activities, like how many people you connect with, how many conversations you have. So it is really tricky, but you can in outreach, like if it's a task in outreach, that can track to the CRM. But how often are you in outreach doing those things? Like you're usually in sales nav. So it's kind of tricky. I haven't found that's another idea I've had is like tracking sales nav and creating a solution where you could track social selling success and all the activities and relate that back. That would be something that I came up with that when I was an SDR because I was like, why my numbers? So when I was an SDR, I got all my numbers from basically social selling and then would bring them back to email because that's the holy grail. That's where they accept the invite. So my numbers looked really low. I had tons of people in sequences getting more automated stuff. And then I would just personally reach out to the people over LinkedIn that I'd connect to. So it always felt one-on-one to me because I would be sending videos over LinkedIn and just kind of creating content. I'd make posts and tag them. I just thought that was very natural to do. So I think with email, it's always a tricky game because it kind of has to be perfect to catch their attention. So that was always the trick for me. And I feel like things like Lavender will help that. But for me, LinkedIn was a more casual approach. I could share my personality. And I guess I would love to kind of hear your feedback because email seems so structured to me that, and it's such a crazy like noise channel. Like there's so much in there that it has to be personalized. It has to have so much value. It has to have a punchy call to action. It has to really, and a great bump, to get their attention. It has to have everything to it to really drive it home and get their attention. But LinkedIn, you could just boom, get a reply. So yeah, I guess what's that challenge for you?
Yeah. And it's funny you say that, because there's so many things going on in email, right? And that's why we simplified it down to a singular score. It's like, okay, let's take all these different factors and just like codify it, make it a singular number that you can track and be like, oh, cool, I got an A. Now I can move forward. It like cuts a lot of that doubt out of the process. One of the things you're talking about though is the structure. Does it have to like have these certain things? There's no actual rules. I think that is like one of the key things that like we always kind of forget is like there's a human being on the other end, and they would probably enjoy receiving the same kinds of communication that you would enjoy receiving. And so if you think about that, it's like, okay, it shows up with some context. And that context then leads you to like, and by context, what I mean is like, context is like, okay, I made an observation. So if you're reaching out on LinkedIn, it might be like their job experience. They went from an enterprise style company to a more SMB style company, or they switched from selling to HR to now they're selling to CS, right? And you can generate dialogue with that. That's an interesting snippet, right? What that leads you to then, like the next step of an email is like, okay, I imagine there's some sort of insight that I derive off of that, or some kind of problem that they might be having that says like, hey, one, I'm genuinely curious about you, but two, I have a brain and like I can process this information. I kind of understand where you're coming from on the other end. And those two things are the most important pieces of any outbound, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's an email. The rest of the stuff, you could almost cut it if you wanted to, right? Like I could write an email that says like, hey, Lila, it looks like you're hiring a bunch of new reps right now. I'm curious, do you have visibility into how they're ramping? Right? I've implied that I've got a solution on the other end, but I'm also just asking a question based off of something that I'm seeing.
So you're saying you don't have to be as personalized and spend so much time into it as you think, potentially.
No, you just need to like have a good reason to show up and interrupt them.
I love that. Across any channel, that would be good. You just need a reason to show up and interrupt them. Because we do, all salespeople do. That's their MO, I think.
Yeah, I mean that's what it is. You're interrupting somebody within their day-to-day, right? They're in their inbox, you're interrupting them within their to-do list. If you're in their LinkedIn inbox, you're interrupting them
their free time.
Yeah. Yeah, and so it's like, how would you approach a stranger at a conference? Probably wouldn't be like, hey, how are you, Lila? Nice to meet you at this lovely event. Did you know that 14% of CMOs are wondering when it comes to X, Y, and Z? We have a solution that does the following. You'd be like, weirdo.
Person,
yeah.
No, that's a good point, and it is. I don't know. You just have to. I also think there's a matching of a language on each channel. And obviously like call is a little different. You're talking quicker, you're trying to be personal with them, and social, there's this whole kind of ideology of kind of what to say. And it's almost like, what to say and not to say, don't pitch slap, don't do things. There's like almost a secret list of yes and no's. And there's probably a secret list of yes and no's in emails too. So I guess I'm curious what you think those potentially are.
Yeah. My secret list of yes and no's, write to that person, not to a bunch of people. That'd be like my first yes or no. So you're having a one-to-one conversation, not a one-to-many. It's amazing how good of marketers a lot of salespeople are. They can put together like a classic marketing email. And I'm like, that's not your job. That's marketing's job. Your job is to write a one-to-one conversation. Your job is to sound like you are trying to talk to them. It could be a one-to-many conversation, but you could actually write it in a way like I'm just having a one-to-one conversation, right? We have automated emails that go out through Calendly. that literally just says, hey, did you have any feedback after a couple days, right? That email gets a ridiculous amount of replies compared to people's actually like, structured, like thoughtful, like here's all the information, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, it feels like there's a person on the other end. And like that alone makes a huge difference. Same with like inbound too. I see inbound teams like tank this, where they feel the need to like, cool, we got a hot lead. Let me give them all the information they could possibly need to like sell them. And like all you needed to say is like, hey, saw you're excited about what we're doing. Anything I can add clarity on, right? You're gonna get a way higher reply rate with something like that than you are like, here's 17 case studies and resources to go check out.
Sure. Yeah, I've definitely found that if you're more human and less, it's almost like it makes them less intimidated.
Yeah.
And it provides an open gate for them to just reply. Like I got an email the other day there was like, oh, would love your feedback. I love your opinion on this. And I was like, oh, they want my feedback opinion. Okay. So I'll just reply back, So
Yeah.
I think it's better that way.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of this stems from how we're taught to write, right? We are taught to write in school. You're taught to write to a teacher. The teacher, from a hierarchy standpoint, is up here and you're down here. And that teacher demands comprehensiveness. That teacher demands answers to all the questions. And that's not the dynamic of a cold email. The dynamic of a cold email is peer to peer. They have a problem, you have a solution. And so you're setting up a like bad dynamic from the start when you cold email as though you're writing to your grade school professor, where you feel the need to be informative, comprehensive, answer all these questions. Instead, it's like, a much more casual approach. It's not like, overly chummy. I'm not like, what's up, Nicholas? How you doing, broski? Like, that's not going to land well. You're still a professional, but at the same time, you can approach it in a way that feels one-to-one, feels warm, feels friendly. And that's not even getting into like the personalization stuff. On that note of informing, like that's probably another rule when it comes to cold email is this idea of, I don't know what like this is, but we feel this urgency of like, we need to give them the information they need in order to make a decision. And that's actually not what generates response. The thing that generates response is leaving questions unanswered. And so if you're looking at an email and you're asking me like, okay, I preach all the time, the best practice is to get your email between 25 and 50 words. Well, what do I cut from my email to get it there? Cut the stuff about you, right? The stuff about them, that's the stuff that they care about. That's the stuff that they live and breathe. The stuff about you, the absence of it, that creates pull, that creates response. And that's all you're trying to get when it comes to cold outbound is response.
So good. Yeah, like you're if you're having a conversation with something or someone, you're gonna go relevant and ask a question. You're not gonna just like do like 15 paragraphs of just like a Shakespeare monologue at them, because they're gonna disconnect and walk away. But we do it in our sales contacts, and so if it's not gonna resonate, like whatever you put after that, unless that you hit that relevance first. So what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Well, I always love you say be relevant.
Yeah, make it about them, make it relevant. And there's a pretty simple way to go about doing that, which because I recognize we'll probably need to wrap up here soon. So if I'm trying to build that relevance, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start at what I do. Might seem counterintuitive, but okay, what do we bring to market? How does that fit within the entire market landscape? What problems does it solve, and who does it solve those problems for? Now we're getting into problem statements, right? And so from that, I know the problems that I solve for. Now, what are the indicators externally that those problems exist? Once I've figured out what those indicators are, I can then organize, sort, filter, and be like, okay, cool. I know where to go find them. I know where to find them most reliably, most relevant information most reliably. And I can start to organize a click path for going after those pieces of information so that this doesn't take me a lot of time. But I can start to have like playbooks of, okay, when I see this and this, I kind of know what my talk track is. I kind of know what I'm going to write about. I don't have to say that much about me. This is like all the information is right there within that email, just from that quick like external problem piece. And it's like, yeah, we have a solution that solves for it. And do you want to learn more about it?
I could ask you so many things right now. Like we could have a conversation for like an hour. It's funny. I have an email workshop after this, so I'm going to implement some of these things. But I guess I just want to say thank you for your time, Will, and all the nuggets that you shared, and really inspiring to me and probably a lot of the listeners. So thank you.
Yeah, well, I'm glad it helps. Appreciate the fun questions about how we all got started. That's always fun to dive into.
Yeah, everyone should know. Lavenders. I think the Lavengers are. I think that's going to stick. So let's get that going.
The Lavengers, or is it Lavengers?
Ooh, I see. I don't know.
Love it. We'll get back to you. We'll brainstorm on this.
Well, thank you, Will. Really appreciate you joining us today and imparting your wisdom and taking us on a journey. I can't wait to see more of your posts. I love them every day. I always learn. Today is no different. If people aren't already following on LinkedIn, is there anywhere else you want them to go and connect with you?
I've been tweeting a lot more, but they can always just email me if they want to chat.
There you go.
Intimidating.
First name, last name at trylavender.com.
There you go, guys.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Well,
thank
you very much. Thank you, Will. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Can't wait to see everybody again soon. Take care.